we'd all be so much better off if we had a world filled with people that thought for themselves. Yeah, we're back with another reflection on the daily Vedantic. I did 6 shooters, dab, and a Howard Dean Hya just then. I've been practicing that for 6 months. I've never done all 3 at the same time like that before. So it's a big day. In addition to that, got one hell of a reflection for you today. That is on one of the pillars of this philosophy. And it's not what it is or what it says, it's what it doesn't say that makes it so powerful. For me, anyways. And that is that this philosophy has no shoulds or should nots, no thou shalts, thou shalt nots. There are no commandments of you must do this. It's more like you are learning an instrument and you're watching a couple amazing videos on YouTube on techniques. You're learning insight after insight, but some of them might not hit you on that particular day. Some of them might have more insight, more value to you on that particular day than others. And it is very different than our traditional approach to spirituality. It's very different than religiosity, where it is nearly all about the shoulds and shouldn'ts in order to get bliss on the other side, in order to get into heaven. This philosophy takes a different approach than all of those. It's just more like, here's a manual for living well, as it's often compared to. Here's a manual. Check out the manual if you want to. If you want to trial and error, start hitting buttons and you're getting by, go for it. Just keep doing that. The manual is just sitting here if you want it. The manual, quite literally, that you could pick up and have a copy right by your bed would be Vedanta Treatise. But outside of reading about this philosophy each day, if there's 1 or 2 things that improve your life within it, you can hold on to those, reflect on them over and over again, find value in them without ever checking out any of the other eternal principles within this philosophy. Another term for Vedanta is Sanatana Dharma, which means eternal principles. So this is just a collection of eternal principles. And like any collection of principles, it's not a list of things that you have to do. Within this philosophy, I grew up Catholic, and so I've noted before that you grow up Catholic and you're told all the time, you can't be a buffet Catholic. You can't take from this, and then you leave these other things. You got to take it all. And this philosophy, many of the sages and saints in kind of modern language, Swami Parthasarathi, my teacher, even at 97, will literally say, treat it as a buffet. Take what's useful to you. Leave the rest. He'll use the phrase, leave it on the shelf. If that concept, that idea, that principle has no value to you or doesn't make sense to you, just leave it on the shelf. Go to the others that do provide value to you wherever you are in life right then. It's one of the most powerful aspects of this philosophy is that, and even something like the Bhagavad Gita, you have this embodiment of God having a conversation with this warrior prince. He thinks he's talking to his charioteer, but it's the symbolic embodiment of God. And it's a dialogue between the two of them. And in that dialogue, even at the end, the symbolic embodiment of God has said, all right, I've told you what you needed to hear. Do as you will. Do whatever you want. Turns out that what has force is not forceful. So much of religion and the mess that it makes in the world is that it is forced philosophy. Instead of philosophy that is intrinsic that is written within us because of the inherent value and power we see with it. Instead, it is forced upon us of like, better not question it. I shouldn't even feign that I'm questioning it. I don't want anyone to think that I'm questioning it. So not only is it force-fed to me, but I can't really bump into the walls and question it, or else I could be excommunicated, quite literally kicked out of the community throughout history, or symbolically judged by my community if I question it. And even worse, not just the philosophy is forced on you, but the language, what you say, the credo. Even worse, if you get your words out of order. I believe that ... If you get your words out of order, you don't say them in a specific way. You say Christ was so wise, and someone looks at you with a side eye. What do you mean so wise? Because you haven't given full credit that they want it. You haven't said the words that they want you to say. But if we can question things, look at it from all angles, and its inherent truth takes hold within us, it can grow roots, and it can withstand storms. Not just thrive, but withstand the world. That is full of force. And yet it was not forced. So this reflection, today's reflection, is on what this philosophy does not say. It does not say thou shalt not do this or that. It just says, here are a few insights that might help you in your path. Like, love is seeing no otherness in the world. Like, detach, you gain; attach, you lose. Like, that which is like nectar in the beginning is like poison in the end. That which is like poison in the beginning is like nectar in the end. You hear these knowledge bombs and you're like, what did I just hear? You write it down. Maybe you listen to it again. It's not, you shouldn't do this. You should do this. And even when it comes to something like sin, this philosophy doesn't have a concept of sin like we do in the West. Closest it gets to it is that which agitates. So if something agitates you, then that's a wrong action for you. But it might be the right action for someone else. It might be the right action 10 years later, a year later. Chilling on the couch, abdicating your responsibility for the work you need to do, that very act has no sinful or rightful nature within it. It's our relationship to those acts. It's our relationship to these things that matters so much more. For example, chilling on the couch after a really hard workout, maybe that's actually exactly what you should do. And there's no agitation there, because rest that's a part of a really healthy approach to life. Chilling on the couch for 4 hours and abdicating your responsibilities that you need to get done that day might agitate, on a certain level, might agitate the hell out of you as the hours progress, where you need even more escape from your responsibilities. That agitation has nothing to do with the couch, but our relationship with it. And lastly, when it comes to what this philosophy says is right action or wrong action, is simply this: right action generates energy within us. Wrong action dissipates energy within us. It's very different than a list of commandments or the Old Testament, which has over 640 laws written within it. It requires us to really think for ourselves what is the right or wrong thing in any given moment, because it's contextual to the environment, it's contextual to us. You really have to think for yourself to apply these principles. But at the end of the day, We'd all be so much better off if we had a world filled with people that thought for themselves and filled with automatons being forced to act a certain way, to think a certain way, to behave a certain way, under the threat of not belonging if they don't. This philosophy takes a different approach, and that's today's reflection on the daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.